rescuers have recovered 73 bodies, but no survivors. Jamie Hurd's father, Jim, realizes that any hope his 29-year-old son made it through alive is gone.
It's not a good time in your life. You know, you're just really thinking about one thing. And to me, the one thing was that I was going to go get Jamie and bring him home.
News reaches the FBI and New York Assistant Director James Kallstrom. Kallstrom immediately suspects the crash is no accident.
My gut told me that this was probably an intervention by some criminal, some terrorist.
Less than 12 hours after Flight 800 plunged burning into the water, investigators survey the impact site. Even hardened law officers like Kallstrom are shocked by the destruction.
I'll never forget the scene of miles, seemed like miles of debris.
Pilots who were near the jet when it exploded tell FBI agents that the blast came out of the blue. But witnesses on the ground report something highly suspicious.
We had 50, 60 people that had called in and said, I saw things in the sky. Some described them as ascending towards this fireball.
Over time, 258 people tell the FBI they saw something streaking through the sky at the moment the 747 was lost.
I followed the streak of light, red-orange in color, moving from my left center to my further left.
2 people even caught an image on camera. One photo shows a mysterious trail in the sky. The other appears to show an object shaped like a missile. Kallstrom faces a horrifying possibility. Was Flight 800 shot down by a terrorist missile? Such an attack just a few kilometers off the US mainland would represent a new escalation of the terror threat facing America and the West. The US supplied shoulder-held ground-to-air missile launches to Islamic freedom fighters in Afghanistan. Kallstrom knows that many of these weapons are now in the hands of terrorists determined to strike at America. But the launches only have a range of 8 kilometers. Since Flight 800 came down 13 kilometers from land, a missile of this type could only have been fired from the ocean.
So the crime scene became really thousands of square miles of ocean and thousands of square miles of Long Island and New York City Harbor, and it was a massive undertaking.
Now, by rewinding the events and going deep into the investigation, we can reveal what really happened to Flight 800. Advanced computer simulation will take us where no camera can go, into the heart of the disaster zone. Agents interview 670 eyewitnesses. They painstakingly check the movements of 20,000 craft in the area. They seize stolen and abandoned boats and run forensic tests on them. But they can't find any promising leads. Then the missile theory takes a new and astonishing turn. Stories and rumors begin to circulate on the internet and in the press. They make an extraordinary allegation that TWA Flight 800 was shot down not by terrorists, but in a terrible accident by the US military. Kallstrom learns that there were 8 military ships, 8 submarines, and 5 military planes within 550 kilometers of the crash site. A P-3 plane and a sub were in the middle of training exercises. He orders dozens of FBI agents to scrutinize all their logs. After weeks of checking, they verify that no missiles were unaccounted for. No missiles were fired that night. The FBI also check out the 2 suspicious photographs. They find that in one, the photographer was facing in completely the opposite direction to Flight 800. Technicians conclude that the object captured is actually an airplane. They also find that the mysterious trail on the other is simply residue on the film. The FBI concludes that the friendly fire theory is groundless. But the story doesn't go away. Now Pierre Salinger, John F. Kennedy's former press secretary, raises the stakes with an astonishing intervention. He says there's been a cover-up. Flight 800 was shot down by a US Navy missile. And he has the evidence to prove it. 13 kilometers off Long Island. 37 meters down, Navy divers grapple with a mammoth task, recovering the remains of TWA Flight 800, scattered over an area of 104 square kilometers. Meanwhile, the FBI follow up a new and disturbing allegation. John Kennedy's former press secretary, Pierre Salinger, claims to have evidence that the US Navy shot down Flight 800 by mistake.
We have now reached the point where we are totally sure that what we are saying is true.
He produces an air traffic control radar tape showing a mystery object close to the doomed jet.
What we see here is a missile about to hit TWA 800.
Many people suspicious about the crash support Salinger's claims. His thesis points to the missile being fired by the USS Normandy, an Aegis-class missile cruiser which was at sea 340 kilometers south of Long Island. The FBI re-examines US Navy activity in the area. It quickly finds that the USS Normandy was at least 160 kilometers beyond the range from which its missiles could hit Flight 800.
We accounted for every piece of ordnance on the Normandy and every other military ship in the region. We looked at every submarine under the ocean. We looked at every aircraft transiting the area, even though they were not capable of shooting a missile and taking an airplane down.
But they find nothing. Scientists analyze the radar tape. They discover the traces are just interference. It's a well-known phenomenon called radar ghosting. They are simply duplicate images of Jet Express Flight 18 flying nearby. The friendly fire claims cost thousands of hours of investigators' time. An exasperated Karlstrom lambasts the conspiracy theorists at a news conference.
But I can assure you that we've looked at every angle, every possibility, and the military of this country has had nothing to do with this horrendous tragedy.
A terrorist bomb or missile is still one of the chief suspects for the loss of Flight 800. But the only way of finding out for sure what downed the plane is to analyze the wreckage. That job falls to the FBI's co-investigators, the National Transportation Safety Board, the NTSB. Their priority, to find the plane's flight recorders or black boxes. Since the day after the crash, Navy divers have scoured the debris zone in the deep waters off Long Island. It's slow and dangerous work. The seabed is littered with razor-sharp fragments. 6 days into the search, and there's no sign of the black boxes. It's possible that ocean currents have buried them in the sand. Then, on day 7, a diver spots something. A flash of orange.
The cockpit voice recorder. That's it. You see the beacon right on it? You want to take a picture of it? Right.
It's the cockpit voice recorder. Within seconds, they get lucky again. The flight data recorder lies just meters away.
They got both of them? Holy cow!
Divers quickly bring the boxes to the surface. To prevent damage by oxidation, they keep them submerged in salt water. For NTSB investigator Bob Swain, it's a potential breakthrough.
As the divers bring the boxes up, the NTSB side of the staff, we typically get pretty excited.
But there's a problem. The boxes are twisted and broken open from the massive impact. Investigators fear that there's little chance the tapes inside will have survived, but they rush them to NTSB headquarters. There they hope they can retrieve something from the recorders. Carefully, they remove the cockpit voice tape from inside the armored casing and thread it onto a player. Against all the odds, the tape is intact and playable.
TWA 800, heavy turn left heading 050, vector climbing around traffic.
Left 050, climb vector.
They carefully analyze all the pilot's conversations and the readings from the data recorder.
Stop climb at 13,000. And the electric?
They scour the last seconds of the recording for any clues to the plane's sudden loss.
Climb to 15,000.
But at 8:31 and 12 seconds, the recording cuts off suddenly. Whatever happened to Flight 800, the pilots had no time to react. The excitement of the find turns to bitter disappointment.
The voice recorder, and the same with the data recorder, really told us nothing.
Now the investigators must rely entirely on the salvaged wreckage of the doomed jet for clues. If Flight 800 was brought down by a bomb or a missile, it would leave evidence behind. NTSB metallurgists examine the fragments under scanning electron microscopes. They're looking for the distinctive micro-pitting which high explosive leaves on metal surfaces. As a veteran of the Pan Am 103 investigation, metallurgist Jim Wildey knows exactly what bomb damage looks like. But he finds no trace of it.
We looked at every piece, every square inch of every piece, every fracture, every surface. Each piece as it came in was examined in detail for evidence of the bomb or explosion, and there simply was no evidence of that type on the TWA aircraft.
At the same time, FBI forensic experts take over 9,000 samples for chemical analysis. They know that traces of explosive can survive even underwater. For weeks, they too find nothing. But then, the FBI makes a momentous discovery.
Microscopic explosive traces of unknown origin have been found relating to TWA Flight 800. I got a call from our chief forensic chemist at the site who had found some minute traces of RDX and PETN, which are two chemicals that are in plastic explosive.
Investigators finally seem to be closing in on an explanation, and increasingly it looks like a bomb.
It's an extraordinary find. The traces survived weeks of immersion in 37 meters of seawater. They were preserved under a piece of sticky tape joining the carpet tiles. It's compelling evidence for a terrorist bomb on board Flight 800. But Karlstrom is skeptical.
It made no sense. I mean, the initial reaction was, wow, but the facts made no sense. The flooring that was recovered, there was no sign of an explosion.
The FBI probes the doomed airplane's history for explanations. They painstakingly explore the dozens of occasions when TWA hired the plane out between flights to third parties. Then, agents make a critical discovery. Just 1 month before the crash, police in St. Louis hired the plane to train sniffer dogs. The police dog handlers tell the FBI they used RDX and PETN, the exact same substances found in the wreckage of Flight 800. And they also revealed that one of the training aids was cracked and may have leaked tiny amounts of explosives material. The bomb traces are real, but they are not the cause of the crash.